Hey old man, you can't be here." The voice was sharp, laced with the kind of impatient authority that came from a man who wore his rank on his collar and his confidence on his sleeve. Sergeant Croft, built like a naval destroyer, wide, gray, and immovable, loomed over the frail figure standing before the new exhibit. The old man didn't move. He was staring intently at a piece of equipment inside the glass case, a primitive-looking underwater breathing apparatus from a bygone era. His clothes were simple, a worn tweed jacket over a faded flannel shirt, the kind of attire that made him invisible in most places, but here, amidst the pressed uniforms and polished brass of the Naval History Museum's dedication ceremony, it made him stand out like a sore thumb. His hands, gnarled with age and mapped with the fine lines of 1,000 repairs, rested gently on the velvet rope separating the public from the display. Sergeant Croft's jaw tightened. He was in charge of security for this event, and a 4-star admiral was due to speak any minute. The last thing he needed was some vagrant wandering in off the street, making the place look untidy. "Did you hear me, Pops? This area's restricted. Time to move along." Still, the old man didn't respond, as if he were in another world, his pale blue eyes clear and steady as a winter sky, fixed on the corroded metal and black rubber hoses of the rebreather. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips, a private acknowledgement of a memory only he could see. This infuriated Croft. It was disrespect, pure and simple. He reached out and grabbed the old man's thin arm, the fabric of the jacket rough beneath his fingers, the biceps surprisingly firm. "Let's go, Grandpa. The show's over for you." But the sudden grip did nothing. The old man stayed rooted to the spot, his gaze unwavering. Croft, accustomed to immediate obedience, felt a flush of anger rise in his neck. He spotted a cup of water on a nearby security podium, left behind by another guard. In a moment of pure, unfiltered arrogance, he snatched it up. "Maybe this will get your attention," he sneered, his voice low and menacing. "You look like you could use a shower anyway." With a flick of his wrist, the cold water arced through the air and splashed across the old man's chest and shoulder, darkening the tweed jacket to a deep, ugly brown. Droplets clung to the gray stubble on his chin. The old man blinked once, slowly. He turned his head, his clear eyes finally leaving the display to meet the sergeant's. There was no anger in them, no fear, just a quiet, profound stillness, more unsettling than any outburst could have been. The shock of the cold water didn't register at first. For Samuel Peterson, the sensation was a key turning in the deepest vaults of his memory. The sudden chill on his skin wasn't just water from a cup. It was the icy bite of the Baltic Sea in the dead of winter, 1968. The hushed, respectful murmur of the museum crowd faded, replaced by the rhythmic, rasping sound of his own breathing through a regulator echoed in Samuel's mind, a lonely noise in an infinite, crushing blackness. He was no longer an old man in a worn jacket. He was a 28-year-old lieutenant in a tight black wetsuit, every muscle coiled with purpose. The weight on his back wasn't age. It was the Mark 6 semi-closed circuit rebreather, a temperamental device that could save his life or kill him in silence. He felt the pressure in his ears as he descended into absolute darkness, broken only by the faint green glow of the compass on his wrist. His mission was clear: locate the wreckage of a downed spy plane and retrieve its secrets before the Soviets did. Operating in enemy waters, a ghost team that officially didn't exist. Failure meant capture or a lonely death in the frozen deep. He remembered the dive knife strapped to his calf, the reassuring weight of survival. He remembered his swim buddy Johnson clapping his shoulder in the dark, a silent promise of "we do this together." The sergeant's grip on his arm now felt like Johnson's. But the voice was wrong, filled with contempt instead of camaraderie. Samuel blinked, the green compass glow fading, the Baltic cold retreating. The museum's climate-controlled air returned. The sneering face above him wasn't a brother in arms, but a boy playing soldier. His gaze drifted back to the rebreather in the display case, the exact model he had used. He remembered modifying the scrubber canister in the field, using a piece of rubber from a galley floor mat to fix a failing seal. That desperate act had saved all their lives. The museum placard didn't mention any of that. It only listed model numbers and service years. It couldn't describe fear, cold, or the bond of men in the dark. He exhaled slowly. Sergeant Croft mistook the sigh for resignation and tightened his grip. "That's better," Croft grunted. "Now, are you going to walk, or do I carry you?" Across the polished floor, Petty Officer 3rd Class Sarah Davis watched with growing dread. Assigned to assist the curator, she had noticed the old man earlier silent, reverent, familiar with the equipment. Croft, known for his bluster and lack of empathy, hadn't seen what she had, the look of ownership, as if the display were an old friend. When Croft escalated, berating him, then throwing water on him, the crowd gasped. It was cruel, humiliating, disgraceful. Sarah, though only a PO3, couldn't stand by. She found an admiral's aide and reported what she saw, trembling but firm. The aide dismissed her until Admiral Charles Hayes himself stepped out, overhearing. He ordered Sarah to report directly. She told everything, and in the Admiral's eyes she saw dawning recognition. By the time Admiral Hayes reached the hall, Croft was dragging Samuel toward the exit. Samuel wasn't resisting, but he wasn't helping either, his silence more defiant than shouting. Croft, desperate and embarrassed by the crowd filming him, barked orders louder, clinging to his rank. "I am an E6. This is a military installation." Samuel finally spoke, his voice raspy but steady. "The uniform is just cloth, son. The person inside gives it honor." The truth enraged Croft. He shoved Samuel, who stumbled and caught himself on the velvet rope. The crowd gasped. Then a new voice pierced the tension. "Sergeant." Cold, sharp, authoritative. Croft froze. Admiral Hayes stood a few feet away, fury etched on his face. Croft snapped to attention, stammering excuses. The Admiral ignored him, walking straight to Samuel. What followed stunned everyone. Admiral Hayes raised his hand in a slow, perfect salute directed at the old man in the damp tweed jacket. Gasps rippled through the hall. Croft's world shattered. The Admiral addressed the crowd. "You are in the presence of a living legend. This is Commander Samuel Peterson." He explained the secret mission of 1968, the near-freezing Baltic. The failing equipment, the improvised repair. The 3 hours Samuel swam towing critical wreckage. The intelligence that prevented international disaster. He is a plank owner of SEAL Team 2. He served in 3 wars. He was awarded the Navy Cross in a ceremony so classified it was held in a locked room. He doesn't wear his medals because he believes the only honors that matter are the names of the men who didn't come home. And you, Sergeant, you threw water on him. Croft crumbled under the weight of shame, face pale, voice broken. He tried to explain, sounding even more pathetic. The Admiral's voice dropped to a lethal calm. "You judged a man by his jacket. You brought dishonor to your rank in this institution." He ordered Croft relieved and confined to barracks, a full report demanded by morning. Master-at-Arms personnel escorted Croft away as the crowd parted, avoiding him like a stain. His career was destroyed all because he couldn't see the giant standing in old clothes. A hush fell over the hall. Admiral Hayes apologized to Samuel on behalf of the Navy. Samuel looked after the disgraced sergeant with sadness, not triumph. "He's just a boy, Charlie," he said. "Sometimes they forget what the uniform is for. Don't be too hard on him. Shame teaches better than a brig." His forgiveness stunned the crowd as deeply as his heroism. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes. The Admiral guided Samuel forward. As they walked, applause began soft at first, then rising into thunder, echoing through the museum. Not for rank or display, but for the man himself, his courage, sacrifice, and unshakable dignity. Samuel sat in the front row humbly, while the ceremony continued with a new weight. The artifacts were no longer just objects. They were pieces of lives like his. Word spread like wildfire. Young sailors pointed him out with awe, seeing not a relic, but a living embodiment of honor, courage, and commitment. The true lesson of the day wasn't in the admiral's speech about naval history. It was in the silent confrontation that preceded it, a stark reminder that heroes don't always wear their greatness on the outside or carry themselves with pomp and circumstance. Sometimes they are quiet old men with clear, steady eyes and worn-out jackets, carrying the weight of a history we can only guess at. Janitors, grandfathers, neighbors we pass every day. Their valor hidden beneath a lifetime of humility. The real uniform of a hero isn't the cloth on their back, but the character woven into their soul. A fabric of resilience, grace under pressure, and the understanding that true strength lies not in how loudly one can command, but in how quietly one can serve and forgive. Sergeant Croft learned that lesson in the most public and painful way. While for everyone else it was a call to look deeper, listen more carefully, and treat every person, especially elders, with the respect they have earned, whether their medals are visible or not. The story of Commander Samuel Peterson and the arrogant sergeant reminds us that in a world obsessed